Hello students, welcome back to the English Danny channel. I'm teacher Sarah, and today we're going to learn how to use adjectives in English speaking and writing. If you like this video and want to see more like it, click the red subscribe button below. Let's begin. What is an adjective? An adjective is a word that is used to describe or tell more about nouns and pronouns. Adjectives help us to express our ideas and opinions with greater complexity. Let's consider two examples. Here is a sentence without an adjective. I live in a house. Now, let's try adding some adjectives to give us more information about our noun, house. Here is the same sentence with one adjective. I live in a small house. And with two adjectives, I live in a small, old house. And finally, with three adjectives, I live in a small, old, blue house. Let's look at one more example. Here is another sentence without adjectives. I like movies. Okay. Now I know you like movies, but we can be more specific by adding just a few adjectives. With one adjective, I like new movies. With two adjectives, I like new, exciting movies. And with three adjectives, I like new, exciting action movies. You could even add more. Adding adjectives helps the person you are talking to better understand you and what you are talking about. Adjectives can be split into many categories like shape, words like square, round, and circular, color, words like red, orange, and yellow, and age, words like old and new. Today, let's look deeper at three categories of adjectives: size, quantity, and quality. There are many adjectives that can be used in each of these categories. The ones we will learn today are some of the most common. First, let's talk about size. Size is one of the most commonly used types of adjectives. These adjectives are mainly useful for describing physical things. Two of the most well-known size adjectives are big and small. But there are many ways to express just how big or how small something is. Let's take a look at this chart that shows size adjectives in order from small to big. On the left, we see a word for something very small, miniature. Often in English, we shorten this word to mini. For example, the boy looks like a miniature version of his father, or the boy looks like a mini version of his father. Next is the word tiny. Something tiny is very small. In a sentence, we can use the adjective tiny like this. Look at those tiny ants. Or, did you see the tiny puppy over there? The word tiny implies that something is smaller than usual or expected. After tiny, we see the word small, which can be used in any situation in which you want to express that something is less than a normal size. For example, she's a small girl, or my phone is so small. There are also adjectives we can use to express that something is neither bigger nor smaller than expected, but is a normal size. The adjectives in the middle of the chart can be used interchangeably. Normal-sized, average-sized, and medium-sized. We'd use these terms in a sentence like this. I want to buy a normal-sized table, not too small or too big. I have an average-sized apartment. It's a medium-sized car. On the right side of the table, we first have the words big and large. These two words are very common and can be used to express that something is greater than a normal size. For example, this is a big classroom, or that's a large tree. After big and large, we have the word huge. This adjective is used to describe something very big or bigger than expected. For example, that building is huge, or this is a huge meal. Even bigger than huge are the adjectives gigantic and enormous. These adjectives are used for things that are extremely big. Here are a few ways we can use these words. Tokyo is a gigantic city. China has an enormous population. Next, let's take a look at quantity adjectives. These adjectives tell us how much of something there is. It is important to note that the quantity adjective we use depends on the noun. If it is a noun, or person, place, or thing, that can be counted in numbers, it is called a countable noun. These are words like car, house, and friend. These are all things we can count. For instance, I can count 5 cars, 4 houses, 10 friends, and so on. If it is a noun that cannot be counted, it is called an uncountable noun. These are words like stress and rain. I cannot count rain or stress. I cannot say there are 10 rains or I have 35 stresses. Therefore, these words are uncountable nouns. Let's take a look at the following chart of quantity adjectives. Blue words should only be used with uncountable nouns. Red words should only be used with countable nouns. And black words can be used with any noun, as you'll see in the top right corner of the chart. First, we see the adjective phrase, a little. Just like the word little means small, a little means there is a small amount of something. A little can be used with uncountable nouns. For example, I'm a little stressed, and I have a little water in my shoes. Next, we see the terms few and a few. It is important to note that few and a few can only be used with countable nouns. A few implies that there is not much of something. For example, there are few cars on the road today, and we only have a few carrots. In the middle is the adjective some. This is an adjective that implies that there is a medium or average amount of something. Some can also be used with any type of noun. Here are some examples. Will you get some snacks from the store? Let's listen to some music while we study. Many is the next adjective, and like few and a few, many can only be used with countable nouns. Remember, countable nouns are things you can count with numbers. Let's look at a few examples. I don't have many books at home. She has many classes this semester. The final quantity adjective we'll talk about today is a lot of or lots of. These terms can be used with any type of noun and in many different ways. Let's consider 3 examples. She has a lot of shoes. There are lots of restaurants near my house. There's a lot of snow on the sidewalk. Last, in today's lesson, are adjectives that describe the quality of something. Quality means how good or bad something is. These adjectives are extremely useful and are used to describe opinions, physical things, emotions, and more. Let's take a look at our third chart for some of the most common quality adjectives. On the left, we see adjectives used to describe things that are bad or that we dislike. Let's begin with the adjectives terrible and horrible. These words are used to talk about things that are really, really bad. Let's see the words in a sentence. That was a terrible movie. I had a horrible flight. Awful is another word used to describe things that are really bad. For instance, I have an awful headache. That song is awful. Bad can be used in any situation. If you want to express dislike or low quality, Bad can be used anytime without sounding as serious as words like awful and horrible. For instance, I had a bad day. This is not as serious as I had a horrible day, but still means it was not good. In the middle of the chart, we see the neutral adjectives okay, fine, and decent. These words mean that something is not good and not bad, just in the middle. Let's see it in context. The pizza was okay. The class was fine. He's a decent singer. Next, on the right, we see words to describe things that are better than okay. Good, great, wonderful, and amazing. Good is like the word bad. It can be used in any situation and expresses like or good quality. It is not so serious. For example, I had a good day is not as serious as I had an amazing day. Great means something is better than good. For example, this is great soup. Words like wonderful and amazing are used to describe things that are really, really good. For example, she is a wonderful teacher, or I had an amazing vacation. Well, students, that concludes today's lesson on expanding your use of adjectives. Remember, using more and different types of adjectives can help you better express yourself and can help others better understand what you mean. If you enjoyed the lesson, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing this video. See you next time. Think, sink, the, z. The way we pronounce TH has a big impact on how well we are understood. Today, let's take a closer look at how to produce the two TH sounds. Welcome back to the English Danny channel, everyone. I'm teacher Sarah. Today, we're going to learn how to make the two TH sounds. The unvoiced TH and the voiced TH. First, let's consider the terms voiced and unvoiced. What does it mean to use your voice? Take your hand and place it on your throat like this. Now, say the letter S. S. You'll notice that there is no vibration in your vocal cords. Now, let's put our hands on our throats again and say the letter Z. Z. You can feel the vibration in your throat when you say this letter. S is an unvoiced sound because we do not use our vocal cords to produce it, whereas Z is a voiced sound because we do use our vocal cords to make it. Let's feel that again. First, let's try the letter S. S. No feeling. Now, Z. Z. Did you feel that? That's a voiced sound. Now, let's talk about the two TH sounds. These are very difficult sounds for many English learners. Let's take a look at how to produce these sounds. Let's start with the unvoiced TH sound. Place your tongue between your teeth like this. Now, push air through your teeth. This is an unvoiced TH. We use this in words like think, thin, and thank. Now, let's try the voiced TH sound. Again, place your tongue between your teeth. This time, we are going to use our vocal cords just like we do when we say the letter Z. Z. Okay, let's try. Put your hand on your throat to make sure you can feel the vibration. Now put your tongue between your teeth and push air through while using your vocal cords. Good job. We can use this sound in words like this, that, these, and those. You may be wondering, why is this important? Many English speakers substitute the correct TH sounds for the letters S and Z. Instead of think, they might say sink. Instead of that, they may say zat. The problem here is that changing one sound may change the meaning of the words. Here is a picture that represents the word think. And here's a picture that represents the word sink. As you can see, these words represent two very different concepts. Be sure to practice this sound and try to listen to yourself as you speak. It can be helpful to record your speaking and listen back. And remember, the key to making this sound is having your tongue between your teeth like this. Language tip. Though it can be hard to tell which TH sound to use when reading, there are a couple helpful rules. First, if the TH comes at the end of the word, it is unvoiced. We can see this in words like bath, depth, and both. When the TH comes in the middle of the word, it is voiced. We can see this in words like mother, father, bathe, and bother. Okay, students, that's it for today's pronunciation lesson. Thank you for tuning in to the English Daily channel again. Make sure to like and share this video and subscribe for more English learning videos from our team of real English teachers. See you next time. Hello students, welcome back to the English Daily channel. I'm teacher Sarah. Today we're going to take a look at adverbs of frequency. Let's get started. Before we begin talking about adverbs of frequency, let's go ahead and take a moment to review what is an adverb. An adverb is a word that's used to modify or describe or tell more about verbs, adjectives, and even other adverbs. Let's take a look at a couple examples. Here is a simple sentence, I run. Here we see our verb is run. Now, we could add an adverb into this sentence to give us more information about our verb run. For example, I slowly run. As you can see, the adverb here tells us more about that verb run. Now let's take a look at how an adverb can be used with an adjective. Here is a sentence. I'm happy. Here we see our adjective is happy. Now I'm going to add an adverb to give us more information about that adjective. For example, I'm extremely happy. Here, the adverb extremely gives us more information about that adjective, happy. Okay, now let's take a look at adverbs of frequency. What are they? Adverbs of frequency are used to talk about how often something happens, and often are used in response to the question, how often? Adverbs of frequency are used often to talk about things like habits, hobbies, and regular occurrences. Some of the adverbs of frequency we'll talk about today are always, normally, usually, often, sometimes, rarely, seldom, and never. Now, these are not all of the adverbs of frequency there are, but we will use these 8 as examples for how to use adverbs of frequency in different kinds of sentences. Let's take a look at what these words mean. Here, if we look at the top of this chart, we can see that always means 100%. It is always true 100% of the time. For example, I always eat breakfast. This means that every day, always, 100% of the time, I eat breakfast. I always eat breakfast. Now let's go down to our next word, normally. Normally means something happens about 90% of the time. For example, I normally go to bed at 11 o'clock. This means that about 90% of the time I go to bed at 11 o'clock. And maybe 10% of the time I go to bed earlier or later, but I normally go to bed at 11 o'clock. Now let's take a look at our next word, usually. Usually is a very common adverb of frequency and means something happens about 80% of the time. For example, she usually watches TV before bed. This means that about 80% of the time she watches TV before bed. Maybe 20% of the time she does something else, but she usually watches TV before bed. Okay, now let's go down to our next adverb of frequency, often. Often means something happens about 70% of the time. For example, he calls me often. This means that about 70% of the time he calls me. He calls me regularly. He calls me often. Okay, now we're going to get down into adverbs of frequency that describe things that happen less often. For example, our next word is sometimes. Sometimes means something happens about 50% of the time. For example, I ride my bike sometimes. This means that I don't ride my bike a lot, but sometimes I do. I ride my bike sometimes. The next word we're going to look at is the word seldom. Seldom means something happens about 25% of the time, so not very often. For example, she seldom reads. This means that she does not read very much. She seldom reads. Next, let's take a look at a word that's used to describe when things happen about 10% of the time. And that word is rarely. We can use rarely in a sentence like, my friend is rarely late. This means that my friend is only late about 10% of the time. They are not late often. And finally, let's look at the adverb of frequency, never. Never means something happens 0% of the time. It does not happen. For example, I never miss class. This means that 0% of the time I miss class. I never miss class. Next, let's look at some different ways that we can use adverbs of frequency in sentences. We'll talk about 3 main ways that they can be used and one that we'll expand on in a future video. First, we can use adverbs of frequency in sentences that have be plus a verb. Now, if you remember, the verb be includes words like am, is, are, was, and were. For example, I could have a sentence like, my boss is happy. Now, if I want to add an adverb of frequency, I could say, my boss is often happy. As another example, we can look at a sentence like, I'm late for work. Here, I could add an adverb of frequency and say something like, I'm seldom late for work. Next, we can see adverbs of frequency used with other verbs. So we'll see our adverb of frequency plus another verb. For example, I could have a sentence like, we go to Scotland in August. Now, if I want to add my adverb of frequency, I'll put it before that verb and say, we usually go to Scotland in August. As another example, I could look at a sentence like, it gets very windy here. Here our verb is gets, so we want to put our adverb of frequency before, and we could say, it sometimes gets very windy here. Third, it is important to note that most adverbs of frequency can be used at the beginning or the end of a clause or a sentence. For example, I could say, sometimes I want to live somewhere else, or I could put it at the end and it's also correct. I want to live somewhere else sometimes. Let's look at another example with the adverb usually. Usually I get up early. That is correct. I can also take the adverb usually and put it at the end of that sentence. I get up early usually. That's also correct. Now, we cannot do this with every adverb of frequency. Some adverbs of frequency cannot come at the beginning and the end of sentences. These include the adverbs rarely, seldom, and never. Though it's normally true that never cannot come at the beginning or end of a sentence, always and never can be used at the beginning of imperative sentences. For example, always wear your seatbelt, or never forget it. The last way that we can use adverbs of frequency is a way that we'll expand upon at another time. Here we could use an auxiliary verb and an adverb. For example, I have never seen a whale. You can always stay with us. Or, have you ever played American football? But again, we'll touch on this specific use of adverbs of frequency at another time. Okay, now I want you to try to make your own sentence using adverbs of frequency. I will ask you a question, think about it and try to answer it, and pause the video to say the sentence out loud. Then hit play and we'll see what an example of a correct answer would be. Okay, number 1. How often do you read books? Okay, did you come up with your answer? We can answer this question using any adverb of frequency. For example, I sometimes read books, or I read books often. Okay, number 2. How often do you listen to music? Again, we can answer this question using any adverb of frequency. For example, I rarely listen to music, or I listen to music sometimes. Okay, number 3, our last question. How often do you study English? Here, again, we can just plug in our adverb of frequency before the verb and some of them at the beginning or end of a sentence. For example, I always study English, or sometimes I study English. Okay, students, that's it for today's lesson about adverbs of frequency. Please make sure to like and share this video and hit that subscribe button for more English learning videos from our team of real English teachers. See you next time. Hello, students. Welcome back to the English Danny channel. I'm teacher Sarah. At, on, and in are prepositions that can be a little confusing. How do you know which to use? Today we're going to learn how to use at, on, and in correctly when talking about time. Let's get started. There are many phrases we can use when talking about time. We can use specific times like 1 o'clock, 4:15, and midnight. We can use parts of the day like morning and afternoon, days like Monday and Tuesday, months like January and February, seasons, holidays, and so on. Let's begin with the word at. At is used to talk about clock times, the whole period of the holidays like Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving, and in British English, at is used with weekend. Here are some examples. First, clock times. I usually get up at 6 o'clock. I'll meet you at 5:30. Call me at lunchtime. Next, the whole period of holidays. We do not use at to refer to the specific day, but rather to talk about something that happens in the time period surrounding a holiday. For example, I love seeing my family at Christmas. This means that I love seeing my family in the time period surrounding Christmas, not just on Christmas Day. We're getting the roof repaired at Easter. This means that our roof will be repaired in the time period surrounding Easter, not just on Easter Sunday. Finally, in British English, you will often hear the term at the weekend. For example, what did you do at the weekend? In American English, however, we say on the weekend. I'm going to see her on the weekend. Next, let's consider the preposition on. On is used to talk about specific, particular days. For example, she will arrive on Tuesday. My birthday is on November 5th. They're having a party on Christmas Day. We can also use on to talk about repeated actions. For example, we usually go see our grandparents on Sundays. Lastly, let's look at the preposition in. In is used to talk about parts of the day and longer periods of time. Parts of the day include words like morning, afternoon, and evening. For example, I work best in the morning. I'll see you in the afternoon. We like to go out in the evening. It is important to note that with the word night, there are two possible prepositions we can use, in or at. We use in the night to refer to one particular night, and at night to mean during any night. Compare the following sentences. I had to get up in the night. This means I had to get up in one particular night. I often work at night. This means I often work during any given night. In is also used to talk about longer periods of time like weeks, months, seasons, years, and centuries. Let's consider the following examples. It happened in the week after Thanksgiving. I was born in June. Osaka is beautiful in spring. She finished college in 2012. Our house was built in the 15th century. In can also be used in a few other circumstances. In can be used to say how soon something will happen and how long something takes to happen. For example, I will turn in the assignment in 3 days. I can run 200 meters in about 30 seconds. Last but not least, there are some time expressions that do not use any prepositions. At, on, and in are not normally used in expressions of time before the words next, last, this, one, any, each, every, some, all, and sometimes that. Here are some examples. See you next week. Are you free this morning? Come anytime. I didn't feel very well that week. I'm home every evening. Let's meet one day. We stayed all day. All right, let's summarize today's lesson. Here is a chart showing how we can use at, on, and in, and when to not use these prepositions. At is used to talk about clock times, the whole period surrounding holidays, and in British English, at is used with the weekend. On is used to talk about specific particular days. In is used to talk about parts of the day and longer periods of time. In can also be used to say how soon something will happen and how long something takes to happen. We do not use these prepositions in expressions of time before these words. Okay, students, that's it for today's lesson. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like and share this video and subscribe for more English lessons from our team of real English teachers. See you next time. Hello, students. Welcome back to the English Danny channel. I'm teacher Sarah, and today I'm going to help you learn how to talk about the past in English using the simple past verb tense. Let's get started. Talking about the past is something that we do every day, and for the most basic form of talking about the past, we use the simple past verb tense. We use the simple past to talk about many kinds of past events like finished actions and repeated events. Simple past is very common in storytelling too. In short, the simple past is used to talk about actions that were completed in a time before now. We use the simple past to answer questions like, what did you do yesterday? What did you do yesterday? I studied English, I played computer games, and I talked to my friend. In these answers, we see regular simple past verbs like studied, played, and talked. Most regular simple past verbs are formed like this: subject plus verb plus ed. For example, I played, I walked, I talked, I learned. There is some variation in the way we use the ed ending when spelling past tense verbs. If a verb ends in e already, like hope or like, we just add d. For example, I hoped and I liked. If a verb ends in one stressed vowel and one consonant, except w or y, like shop, plan, or regret, double the consonant and add ed. For example, I shopped, I planned, or I regretted. Finally, if a verb ends in y, like hurry, cry, or study, change the y to I and add ed. For example, I hurried, I cried, or I studied. Using these rules, let's take a look at some common regular verbs and a sample sentence using each in the past tense. Want, wanted. I wanted to eat breakfast. Help, helped. She helped me do my homework. Talk, talked. We talked for hours. Hope, hoped. I hoped the test would be easy. Love, loved. I loved the movie. Stop, stopped. The music stopped. Shop, shopped. We shopped all day. Plan, planned. We planned a vacation. Study, studied. I studied yesterday. Cry, cried. The children cried. Now that we've seen some examples of regular past verbs, it is important to note that the ed ending is not always pronounced the same, as you may have noticed. There are three main ways that you can say ed: d, t, and id. First, the ed ending is pronounced d when it is after vowels, a, e, I, o, u, and sometimes y, and voiced consonants except d. Voiced consonants include these sounds: v, b, v, z, j, j, g, m, n, and l. For example, try, which ends in y, tried. Clothe, which ends in the voiced th, clothed. Use, which ends in the z sound, used. Fail, which ends in the l sound, failed. Second, the ed ending sounds like t after unvoiced consonants except t. Unvoiced consonants include these sounds: f, p, f, s, sh, ch, k. For example, stop, stopped. Laugh, laughed. Watch, watched. Work, worked. Pass, passed. Finally, if a verb ends in a d or t sound, the ed ending sounds like id. For example, end, ended. Start, started. Many verbs in English follow the regular simple past pattern. However, there are also many irregular simple past verbs. These verbs do not follow the verb plus ed form. Here are some of the most common irregular verbs. For a full list of irregular verbs, check the link in the description below. Go, went. I went home. Do, did. She did it. Have, had. We had a good time. Buy, bought. You bought a nice jacket. Come, came. Winter came early this year. Eat, ate. I ate dinner already. Take, took. He took a picture. Get, got. I got sick. Say, said. She said it's okay. Teach, taught. I taught you a lesson today. Write, wrote. I wrote a poem. Think, thought. I thought so. Again, for a complete list of English irregular verbs, be sure to check the link in the description below. Okay, students, that's it for today's lesson on the simple past. Did you learn something new? If you liked the video, be sure to click the like button and press that red subscribe button below. If you loved it, please share it and tune in again soon for another lesson from our team of real English teachers. See you next time. Hello, students. Welcome back to the English Danny channel. I'm Teacher Sarah. So far, we've learned about how to use more adjectives to improve our English and how to compare things using adjectives. Today, we're going to learn about how to put adjectives in the correct order. Let's get started. Have you ever been confused about how to describe something using several adjectives? When multiple adjectives come before a noun, they have to be put in a particular order. For instance, we say a fat old lady, not an old fat lady, and a small shiny black leather bag, not a leather black shiny small bag. The rules for adjective word order are complicated, but today we'll talk about some of the most important rules. First, adjectives of color, origin, or where something is from, material, or what something is made of, and purpose, or what something is used for, usually go in that order: color, origin, material, and purpose. Let's take a look at some examples. Black Spanish leather hiking boots. A silver German beer mug. A red silk scarf. An Italian glass flower vase. An oak dinner table. Next, other adjectives usually go before words of color, origin, material, and purpose. Adjectives of size, shape, length, height, and age often come first. Let's look at some examples. The round glass table. Here we see the shape, round, comes before the material. Number 2, a big modern brick house. Here we see the size and age come before the material. Number 3, a tall ancient Cambodian temple. Here we see the height and age come before the origin. Number 4, a long old English book. Here we see the length and age before origin. Adjectives which express judgments or attitudes usually come before other adjectives. Examples are lovely, definite, pure, absolute, extreme, perfect, wonderful, and silly. Here are some examples. Number 1, a lovely, long, cool drink. Number 2, who's that silly young man over there? Number 3, what a perfect, long, warm summer day. Finally, let's consider numbers. Numbers usually go before all other adjectives. For example, we would say 6 large eggs and the second big storm. First, next, and last most often go before 1, 2, 3, and so on. For example, the first 3 days and my last 2 jobs. Okay, let's get some practice. I'm going to put 3 sentences with mistakes in them up on the screen. Pause the video and try to fix the mistakes. Number 1, I have the French black perfect dress. Number 2, have you seen those red old brick lovely 3 houses? Number 3, the 3 last weeks were cold. Did you figure it out? Now let's look at the correct sentences. Number 1, I have the perfect black French dress. Number 2, have you seen those 3 lovely old red brick houses? And number 3, the last 3 weeks were cold. In number 1, the word perfect is a judgment, which means it comes before all other nouns. We also list color, black, before origin, French. In number 2, we see the number 3, which comes first. We also see the judgment word, lovely, which needs to come before other nouns. Age, old, comes before color, red, which comes before material, brick. In number 3, remember that we use words like first, next, and last before numbers. Okay, students, that's it for today's short new English lesson. Please be sure to like and share this video and subscribe to our channel for more English learning videos from our team of real English teachers. See you next time.